I am Dr. K.AMUDHA from Biochemistry department. In today's topic, we can see what is diabetes mellitus. So diabetic mellitus, it is a third leading cause of death, which is next to heart attack and cancer. And this is quite common in all the developed countries. This affects nearly 2 to 3% of the general population. So when a patient gets diabetes, it affects eyes, kidneys and nervous system, which causes blindness, renal failure, heart attack and even stroke. So when you want to see the definition of diabetes mellitus, it is a clinical condition characterized by increase in blood glucose level, which is due to insufficient or inefficient insulin. So when you want to say this in other words, insulin may not be produced in sufficient quantity or insufficient in its action on target tissues. So because of this, the glucose level increases. Once there is increase in the blood glucose, it should be naturally excreted out in urine. Clinical types and causes. There are two main groups. One is primary, another one is secondary. So primary, it is idiopathic. So actual cause is not known. That is called as a idiopathic. We'll see one by one. So coming on for the primary, this constitutes the major group. Exact cause is unknown. And this is due to metabolic defect, that is due to insufficient insulin. And the secretion of the insulin may be absolute or relative. So coming on for the secondary, this constitutes the minor group and this is associated with certain pathological conditions. So example, during pancreatitis, during cystic fibrosis, during acromegaly and during Cushing's syndrome. This primary diabetes, it is of two clinical types. That is idiopathic, it is of two clinical types. So one is juvenile onset diabetes and the second one is maturity onset diabetes. So we'll see one by one. Coming on for the juvenile onset diabetes, it is also called as type 1 diabetes or else insulin dependent diabetes mellitus. In short form, we can also say this as IDDM. In here, this is of course less frequent. It is not of course common, it is less frequent and this mainly occurs in childhood. And the age of the childhood will be around 12 to 15 years. And this diabetes affects the males more and females are less affected. Of all the diabetes patients, 10 to 20% is insulin dependent diabetes mellitus. Usually, patients are thin and they will be underweight. The reason for this may be due to the beta cells produces more insulin than the normal. Then the beta cells becomes exhausted, so there is less production of the insulin or else there is no production of the insulin. So in other words, when we want to say this, the beta cells are destructed by drugs or maybe due to virus or due to autoimmunity. And this diabetes occurs due to 80 to 90% of beta cell destruction. Next we'll see maturity onset diabetes mellitus. And this is called as type 2 diabetes. In other words, we can say this as non-insulin dependent diabetes mellitus and shortly as NIDDM. And this is the adult onset diabetes. Of the diabetes patient, 80 to 90% will fall under this category. That is in type 2. And this occurs in adults who are above 35 years and even more. And this is quite common in both men and women. This is caused due to increased food intake and may cause increased production of insulin also. And the insulin receptors are lack in the target tissues. So there is increase in the glucose level. This can be reduced by oral hypoglycemic agents and by dietary control. This is the usual treatment for this diabetes, that is type 2 diabetes. Coming on for the other factors, the first one is hereditary. Hereditary plays in both types, that is in type 1 and even in the type 2. The genetic factors play above 40 years. In juvenile type, susceptibility is associated with particular HLA phenotype. Here, risk is more, that is 2 to 3 times more in those who are HLA phenotype B8 or BW15. So coming on for the second one, it is autoimmunity. Insulin dependent juvenile type may be an autoimmune disorder. So there are evidences. We can see the lympholytic and plasma cell infiltration in the pancreas, and also the detection of autoantibodies by immunofluorescence. The third other factor is infections. Certain viral infections may participate in juvenile type diabetes. Experimentally, it was shown that certain viruses causes diabetes. So example, you can say it is incidence in high after mumps. And the fourth one is obesity. Obesity, it is common in non-insulin dependent diabetes mellitus. And stress may be the cause for this obesity. Coming on for the next is diet. The overeating and even underactivity are factors in non-insulin dependent diabetes mellitus. So this can be cured only by the exercise. And the seventh one is insulin antagonist. In non-insulin dependent diabetes mellitus, the insulin produced against the glucose is normal or even greater, but the deficiency may be due to insulin antagonist. The exact cause is of course not known. The various factors have been found from time to time. So example, we can say it is beta 1 lipoprotein factor, which is found in plasma of diabetes patients, and synoalbumin of Wallace own in plasma, which is a dialysable and thermostable substance which is also found in plasma. And this is also due to insulin antibodies. And this is also caused due to the secretion of abnormal and less active or altered insulin. And this may also be due to receptor deficiency. And the insulin antagonism may also be due to lack of cellular response to insulin. So when I come for the secondary diabetes mellitus, the secondary diabetes mellitus, it is a minor group, and this is caused due to some other disease condition. It is pancreatic diabetes. During pancreatitis and even during hemochromatosis, and also due to malignancy of the pancreas. And secondary diabetes, it is also caused due to abnormal concentration of antagonistic hormone. The hormone which is against the insulin is called as an antagonistic hormones. And these hormones includes thyroidism, that is increased activity of the thyroid, that is called as hyperthyroidism, and hypercortisolism, hyperpituitarism, and there is also increase in glycogen activity. And the third cause is ictrogenic, that is a wrong treatment. It may be due to the therapy like diazide diuretics and also during corticosteroids. Clinical features and biochemical correlations. Large amount of glucose may be excreted out in urine. That is called as polyuria condition. The normal level of glucose should be around 90 to 100 grams per day. So once the level of the glucose in the body increases, the increased glucose will be excreted out in the urine. So to excrete more amount of glucose, more amount of urine will be excreted out. And this is called as polyuria condition. Loss of fluid leads to thirst. And this condition is called as polydipsia. And this thirst is caused due to polyuria condition. That is once the more amount of fluid is excreted out, the patient takes more amount of water, and that condition is called as polydipsia. And the diabetes patients also have polyphagia, that is eating more frequently and more fond of sweets. This persists in patients for many months in type 2 diabetes. And it occurs in type 1 diabetes. If it is not treated, this may even lead to severe problems. Here, tissues including muscles receive liberal supply of glucose, but cannot use glucose, that is due to deficiency of insulin, or else due to transport defect to the cells. This causes weakness and tiredness. And once a glucose cannot be used as a fuel, fat is metabolized, and that leads to the formation of increased free fatty acids in blood and also in the liver. So once there is increased free fatty acids, and this is converted to acetyl-CoA. The acetyl-CoA once formed, it is diverted for the synthesis of cholesterol. So the synthesis of cholesterol is increased above the normal. So once the cholesterol level increases in the body, this leads to hypercholesterolemia. That is, increased amount of cholesterol in the body is called as hypercholesterolemia. And this cholesterol deposits all over the blood vessels. And this leads to atherosclerosis. And this atherosclerosis and the increased cholesterol develops xanthoma. And there is also increased ketone bodies formation. That is acetone, acetoacetate and beta hydroxybutyrate. So the increased ketone bodies leads to acidosis. And this leads to hyperventilation, that is called as air hunger. When ketosis is severe, the acetone is breathed out, giving a fruity smell in the breath. Due to ketosis, it develops anorexia, nausea and vomiting. And the ketoacidosis produces increasing in the drowsiness, leading to diabetic coma in untreated cases. The dehydration also occurs, and the electrolytes which is present in the body will increase. And not only this happens, to give energy, there is excessive breakdown of the proteins. So the proteins are the building blocks of the amino acids. The protein, what happens? There is no synthesis of the protein, and the proteins will break down into amino acids. The amino acids will undergo deamination to give energy for the body. And this accounts for the loss of weight in the human. Next is management of diabetes. Diet, exercise, drug, and finally insulin are the management options in diabetes. So when you come for the diet, a controlled diet, a balanced diet can maintain the diabetes. So from this we can prevent from diabetes. And a normal exercise, that also can reduce the blood sugar level. And there are hypoglycemic drugs available, and by using the drug we can reduce the blood glucose. And finally we go for the treatment for insulin treatment, that is a hormone treatment. So 50% of the new cases can be controlled by diet alone, whereas 20 to 30% of the patients need oral hypoglycemic drugs, whereas 20 to 30% require insulin. The dietary management for diabetes includes, so when you take a diabetic patient, he is advised to consume low calorie diet. So the diet should contain a decreased amount of carbohydrates and fats. Then high protein and fiber rich food are advised to take. The carbohydrates taken should be taken as complex sugars as in the form of a starch. So starch is a polysaccharide. The starch will undergo hydrolysis very slowly, and this will give energy in a balanced form. So the carbohydrates which is taken should be in the form of a complex sugar, that is in the form of a starch. And the refined sugars, that is such as sucrose and glucose, should be avoided. So because the reason for this is, sucrose is a disugar, and glucose is a monosugar. Once as we take this will provide energy. So usually a complex diet is advisable than compared with that of a refined sugars. That is, straight away to sucrose and glucose, we can take a complex sugar like a starch. The fat which contains more amount of unsaturated fatty acids can be advised. The diabetes can also be reduced by using hypoglycemic drugs. So in this topic we have seen what is diabetes, what are all the types of diabetes, and what are all the complications caused during diabetes and how it is managed. Thank you.